Welcome to the Dry Bones Podcast.
Welcome.
Here we are again in my basement.
Well, here's the funny thing. For us, we're here again in your house in Western Kansas. But what the people don't really know is that the first time we actually recorded episode 1 was here, but it never made it live because we didn't know what we were doing. We had a lot of technical issues.
Yeah, well, and that was kind of a blessing in disguise because
Yes.
that episode sucked. I'm glad we deleted it.
We were so unprepared.
Yes, we were.
So I was thinking about something.
Okay, hit me with it.
How long have we been friends?
Forever.
Yeah.
As long as I can remember.
So when I explain to people, I'm like, yeah, I got this really good friend that I do a podcast with, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, we've literally been friends since he was born because
You came first.
I was there about a year before you, but our parents were really close. So we literally, like, I don't have any life memories where you weren't a part of my life.
That's true.
Isn't that crazy?
Like, we took, like, kindergarten pictures together.
But it goes before that. We were in the
remember
same
them.
nursery.
Yeah.
Our parents were going to the lake and driving boats, and
That's true.
we were little babies. And
I remember when I got burned and your dad held you up outside the window of my
Yeah.
hospital room.
yeah,
And you were just like, hey.
Yeah, 'cause they wouldn't
just
let me come
waved.
see you.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
yeah. That's literally
30
how,
years.
when I explain to people who you are that don't know you, I'm literally like, yeah, we've been friends since he was born because just long time. 30 years. You're getting old, man.
I know. You're older than me, 31.
I know, but I've already dealt with like the issues. Of
you
getting
already
old
went downhill.
pretty badly this year.
You're fine. You look great.
We're doing better.
That's right.
We're doing better.
That's right. Moving on.
On an uptick. Well, on the topic of Friends, were you a big fan of the show Friends?
It was, yeah. I mean, I didn't have cable until I got to college.
It's true.
So I didn't see it until I got to college. But yeah, I thought it was funny.
I mean, we watched it some, but it wasn't like a staple part of like.
Yeah, it wasn't for us either. Like, Veggie Tales was a big thing in my house.
Yeah. Well, we watched a lot of things. We watched like Home Improvement. We watched CSI Miami, Law and Order,
Saturday Night Live when it was good.
Seinfeld. But no, not much on Friends. Anyway, well, if you guys haven't figured it out yet, the topic is friends, friendship. Let's all just hold hands, sit in a circle, cross your legs.
I think of all my favorite movies, like The Sandlot and Little Rascals and yeah, like just those kind of movies where there's like 6 or 7 really good friends that get up to no good or save the day or, rescue their dog or whatever. So
Usually when we were young and we were together, it typically turned out to be not good things.
we got up to some shenanigans.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that all led to this. And now we're doing good things. So, we're talking about friends.
Yes.
This episode.
Yes.
Friends. What's that song? What's that song?
F is for friends who do stuff together.
That's
the
it's a
fun
fun
song.
U is for ukulele.
Any kid who grew up around our age. SpongeBob,
Yeah.
man.
Oh, man.
Y'all know it.
That's funny. I think it's hilarious that we thought it was a Friends song. Anyway, all right,
both
Friends.
immediately.
We're doing
Yes.
Friends. Okay. So I think we should start off the episode with that.
Yeah.
Those 2 paragraphs that one woman, whatever, theologian or whoever she was.
We will give the one woman a name.
The one woman, yes. Give her the credit where the credit
yes.
is definitely due.
Yes. So I believe I'm a little confused on the layout of everything. It is written by a lady by the name of Gail O'Day, and she is the associate dean and also a professor at Candler School of Theology. But this is actually something from a paper that comes from the Baylor University Center for Christian Ethics. So, and it's titled "I Have Called You Friends," and this is all based. It's kind of an 8-page paper that she wrote based on John 15. And the very 2 opening statements are just, I don't know, it was really cool. It really kind of stuck out to me as I was going through this. But I'll start with the verse. So John 15 verses 2 through 15 says, and this is Jesus talking to his disciples. It says, "This is my commandment, that you love one another as I have loved you. No one has greater love than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends. You are my friends if you do what I command you. I do not call you servants any longer, because the servant does not know what the master is doing, but I have called you friends because I have made you known to everything that I have heard from my Father. So kind of a cool moment. It's a transition where Jesus is saying, hey, this is no longer servant, master, teacher, student type of thing. Like,
we're friends.
We're in this.
Yeah.
And it all comes down to love. So
we're all relying on each other, holding each other accountable.
Yeah. So at the beginning of this paper, just a really cool statement here. What Gail O'Day wrote here was, contemporary Christian piety tends to place words like sin, redemption, atonement, justification, repentance, and born again at the center of conversations about what it means to live out the offer of salvation made available through the life and death of Jesus Christ. Quote unquote, friendship does not figure prominently in such a theological world, since friendship is normally relegated to the secular realm, as exemplified by the prominence of friends as the pivot of plots in television shows and movies. Yet as the quote from the Gospel of John shows, nothing could be farther from the truth. For Jesus, friendship is the ultimate relationship with God and one another. One of the most common verbs for love in Greek is phileo. The Greek word for friend, philos, comes from this verb. In the New Testament, a friend is immediately understood as one who loves. This fundamental connection between love and friendship is an essential starting point for reclaiming friendship as a resource for faith and ethics for contemporary Christians. So it's you don't think of that. Like when I think of any friend, like when I think of friendship, it's almost like, because you even separate your friends. I got my church friends.
Yeah.
I got my best friends, like people I've been around with forever. And then I got like my work friends or my neighborhood friends, you know?
Yeah.
You don't tend to think of like friendship in this thought of like as being a correlation with your faith. Well, if that makes sense.
Even right now, like I can hardly think of any sermons or lessons that I've heard about friendship, just being friends with other people. You know, like what it said at the beginning there, where it's focused on, salvation and redemption. And I mean, definitely all those things are important, but like, I feel like it's very rare that we actually hear people teach on how to be a good friend.
Yeah.
So,
well, it's interesting because you always hear preachers talk about like the different words for love, all the, like the agape,
yeah.
The phileo love, all that type of stuff. And usually all of that leads up to just talking about agape love, which is like that sacrificial, like that love, like between spouse and husband or wife and husband. Sorry. But yeah, they kind of skip over. They're like, oh, well, like, they talk about brotherly love, but they don't really equate that to like, why is that important in the faith?
Well, and like, I think something that's kind of funny nowadays, because some people see it as cliche. Like, I say I love you to my friends, like when we're on the phone.
Do. Yeah.
Or like, I'll be like, all right, dude, I love you. I'll talk to you later. And like, I have some friends that are like, yeah, I love you too, bro. And like, I kind of had to break them into saying that. Like, they weren't quite used to it.
I'm one of them.
Yeah. And I still have some friends that I'm like, all right, love you, bro. I'll catch you later. And they're like, later, dude. Like, they don't know how to do it.
Male masculinity. I can't show love, especially to another dude.
I always think of that because I just think it's funny. And I'm like, finally, like one of the guys that struggled with it was like, why do you do that? It's awkward. And I was just like, well, if I were to die today, I'd want you to know that the last thing I told you was that I loved you, and I meant it. Like I did. I cared for you enough to say that I love you. Yeah. And I think that then that kind of spoke volumes to them, because now they say it and they're like, now I do it to my friends. And they're like, why do you do that? And I can now tell them like, well, here's why.
Yeah. And especially from like my family growing up, like we are not ones that express love verbally. It's rare even that I talk to like my mom on the phone and we say I love you. And it's not because I don't. It's just because we're not a super like vocal. Now it's funny because on the flip side of that with my wife, who I love very much, like we're very much like, we're almost like upset if you get off the phone and you don't say I love you. It's like, hey, you didn't say I love you. So it's funny how that like contrast works, but like, it's funny because I was going to bring up how you always say that when we get off the phone.
Yeah.
And it's never been awkward, but there are a couple of those moments where like I'll be walking through Lowe's or something and I'll be like, love you too, man. And I'm always wondering like, I wonder who's listening to that, but I don't really care, obviously. I think it's a great thing that you do.
I've always thought, I don't know where it started. I think it kind of came from a conversation with my sister. I kind of remember her talking about how like dad didn't really used to say it. Mm-hmm. And then he started saying it later when by the time my sisters were out of the house and it was me, and I think I started saying it. And so then dad started saying it. So now dad always says it when he hangs up the phone. Mm-hmm. And it took him a while to do that. And so like, even with family and other people, I think it's kind of funny to just like look at that dynamic between those relationships, because it's like, I love you. And some people are like, man, that's just really hard to say.
Yeah.
Like, and some people express that different ways. I'm not like condemning people that don't say it.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm sure they show their love in other ways. But it's just a reassurance for me, you know, and I want to give other people that reassurance, especially my friends, especially in the world we live in nowadays. Yeah. Like, I don't know. I like doing it.
No, I think it's great. I think it's something very simple, and it's kind of one of those pride things. Like for some people, it's not an issue to say it at all. Like I think of another friend that we both have, TJ. Like he has no problem saying it.
Oh yeah.
But we've got other friends out there that you wouldn't say it. But it's I love that you do it. I think it's a great thing. So something I kind of want to hit on, kind of along those lines, is the Jesus really shows us like a good example right there of like this transition from this master servant relationship, teacher student relationship, to now this is transitioned to something with his disciples even more. He's saying, hey, I love you as a friend. Like this is a core part of, and it wasn't just like would you look at that? We accidentally became friends through this process. Like, no, it was very intentional.
Yes.
Jesus poured into these guys.
I invested time, invested emotions. That's what I think of. I think of an investment.
Yeah.
Like your time is one of the biggest sacrifices you can give to people. And that's what Jesus did with these men. Talk about being really patient with these men also.
So it's, because that's the thing, like it goes beyond like a lot of things, or a main thing that we've been talking about a lot lately is accountability. And you can't have true accountability with someone if you don't have some level of love towards that person. Otherwise, what's the point of accountability? It's more of just hey, what did you do? It becomes a list of like, hey, it's like we've got markers that we're going to try to hit or not hit.
Yeah.
And I'm here just to make sure you hit those numbers on a spreadsheet type of thing. That doesn't get you anywhere. Like the church needs this. We do a lot of quote unquote bashing of the church with this. We have a lot of issues currently with the church.
We could go back to rebuking.
Well, yeah, but what we don't want to, I don't want to make the mistake of making it seem like we're super anti-church.
Yes.
Because the church is an essential portion of the body of Christ. Like
the church is the bride.
It's the bride of Christ. And we can get in, that'll be a whole nother talk sometime. Mm-hmm. But the church is incredibly important. And when we're doing these open kind of rebukes and these issues within the church that we're seeing, it's because we see things that need to change. It's not like, burn the church down because it's not doing the right thing.
I think we kind of see that as like this Americanized version of the church.
Yeah.
And we just need to get back to the biblical version of the church. So when we talk about those things, I don't want people to think we're anti-church, because if you're not in a church, you need to plug into a church.
Yeah.
If you don't have people you can fall back on that are part of that body of Christ, you need to find those people. Like, Even like I have older men that I would call my friends. I kind of hesitated to say older. Sorry, guys. But they're elders in that church in our hometown in Dighton, Kansas, that I would call my friends because after I graduated college and kind of landed on my butt as far as what I thought I wanted to do with my life, I ended up having to go home and brush myself off and start again. And I was just so blessed by all those men in that church being like, hey, you should come to Bible study. We're going to talk about this. It's going to get interesting. And they started that on friendship. They didn't really look at me as like, well, I'm your elder and you need to do this.
You transitioned.
Yes.
You went from the little boy who grew up in the church who, as any adult looks at kids growing up making mistakes. Now you've breached this point of adulthood.
Where I wanted to be an adult, they were expecting me to be an adult, and they approached me as such.
Yeah.
Instead of as approaching me as this young person in the church still, it was like, well, now he's part of the group.
Well, and I have a great verse for that because that's the point I'm trying to get to is that it is a friendship is essential in the church. Because like I said, you can't have accountability. If you don't have friendship, if you don't have some level of, and we're not talking like oh, hey, there's Betty across the street, wave hi, they're a good neighbor of ours. Yeah. I'm talking like actually developing a relationship friendship.
Yes.
That's a vital part of the church, whether it's through small groups, whether it's through devotional stuff, discipleship groups, men's groups, Bible studies, whatever it is. Typically this tends to happen, especially where I come from. I'm a part of a lot, like the church we're currently a part of is a pretty large church. So they can't just have a men's night because you'd have a couple hundred men show up, and that's pretty hard to do a Bible study that way. So you break into small groups, and I go back to the very well known verse in Proverbs. It's Proverbs 27:17, and it says, "As iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens another." Like your relationship with somebody, that's how you mold each other.
Yes.
And it has to come, and it's a multi-tiered thing because it has to be a place like me and you are very good friends. You're far and away probably the closest. I gotta squeeze my wife in there because my wife truly is my best friend.
She trumps me, yeah, of course. Yeah, I get it.
Well, different, a little bit different. But no, well, marriage and friendship, those are two, you can be kind of confused sometimes, but no, that's very separate things. Outside of my wife, who I love very much, like you're obviously probably my closest friend. I got a lot of really good close friends. Me and you can have a conversation with each other. I can say things and say, hey, I think you're in the wrong here. You can come to me and say, I think you might be in the wrong there. We can have those conversations and not it be from a place of judgment or just trying to blast each other. It's not trying to get one up. It's like, hey, man, I want to help you out.
It's being real.
Yes.
I mean, as much as that word can be used in that way, like, there's no facade. There's no fakeness to it. It's like you're getting 100% of who and what I am, and I'm getting that back. And so then we can therefore help each other become better men, not just to each other, but to other people and to our wives and to a church body or whatever that entails.
Yeah, we have to stop tiptoeing around hard issues with people because that's the whole point of getting together and talking about Jesus together. You have to keep each other from stepping in the muck.
Yes.
And a big portion of that is through friendship. Before we get going too much deeper into this, let's take a quick break real fast.
I kind of want to dive into biblical definitions of what it means to be a friend.
Yeah.
Like we could talk for hours on this probably, but there are like how to tell a friend he's wrong, how to correct a friend when you think they've been misstepping. And there's like, I have friends that are outside of the church and friends that are inside of the church, and I love those people. And I think sometimes my friends outside of the church would be like, yo, why are you coming at me like that? And I'm like, well, I'm not coming at you to correct you and because I think you're wrong. I'm coming at you to correct you because I care about you.
Yeah.
I want to see you make it further. I want to see you do better. I want to see you succeed. Like, and so I think when you don't have that tied to the root of Christ, I think that can be misconstrued as different things.
Yeah.
And so I kind of want to dive into topics like that.
Well, before you jump into the verse, how, like, in your opinion, how important are friendships? Obviously, friendships within the church, you want to have like-minded friends. How important, or how maybe even more important, are your friendships with those outside the church? Because we're going to have a lot of people listening to this that are either fringe church people, or I know there's a couple out there that church isn't really a part of their life. Not to say, like, no judgment on you guys.
Yeah, we've been
I
there.
hope you get that by now. And some non-believers that'll be listening to this, how important is it for us to continue those friendships? And like, how do you how do you go about that? I didn't mean to derail your path.
No, because those are good questions, and like I could dive into the verse, but I almost want to answer that to how I feel, because I feel like you and I would be within the body of Christ, within the church.
Yeah.
Like, the church, quote unquote.
Big church.
So I think we're also fishers of men. And so I'm like consistently trying to reel in, as it were, my friends that are outside of the church.
Yeah.
Now, of course, I stumble and I fall, and sometimes they influence me in ways that I probably shouldn't fall into. But also, like, I know that those men can trust me.
Yeah.
And I know that I can trust them. And so then we have this relationship built on that. And so then I can talk to you, someone who's inside the church, and we can discuss how to help bring people in.
Yeah.
So like I have this friend that's outside of the church, and like I would like to talk to you about that, and you and I can discuss that biblically or through the lens of Christ. And then I can apply those things outside of that with the people that are outside of that church.
Yeah.
And ultimately, I think one of the things that I look at is when people are outside of the church and you're investing that time almost to an amount that it might be creepy. Mm-hmm. They're like, what is it with you? Like why do you do that? Why do you call and check up on me? Like my other friends don't do that. Like we see each other at work. We're like, oh, hey, what's up, man? And I'm like, hey, how you doing? Like, let's go grab coffee. Let's go get a burger, And so I think that is also that thing that we're building up in each other as being inside the church. We're then shining that light of Christ outside of the church.
Yeah.
And showing that to the people that we almost want to bring in.
Yeah.
Like I can think of, I kind of call it my ministry, and some of my friends have outside of the church have probably been a little weirded out by it sometimes. But I like to find a nice Bible, and I like to be like, starting John, and so like I'll write a little message inside the cover, like, mm-hmm. Hey man, thinking of you, love you. I know this is kind of weird, but here's this Bible, and this has changed my life, and it's given me peace and contentment, and I can see that you're struggling or whatever they're dealing with, blah, 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 blah. And then point them to somewhere in the Bible to start with.
Yeah.
And like give them even a short prayer. Be like, if you want God to reveal himself to you, pray for that. If you want a peace of mind or contentment of heart, like pray for that. Like, and so I like to do that, and I like to write that in that Bible and then mail it to them. I mean, they have no idea it's coming. It's also kind of fun. Like, here's this little gift, and they're like,
surprise.
Like, I have one friend specifically who was like, it was like 12 days before I heard back from him, mm-hmm. and I knew he had gotten the Bible, and I was like, oh man, like that doubt starts hitting you.
He's not going to be my friend anymore.
Exactly. And I'm like, I pushed him away. I pushed him away. And then they call me and they're like, this is the weirdest, but the greatest gift that I have ever received. Like, I've never met someone thoughtful enough to do this.
Yeah.
And I think that's honestly through the blessing of Christ. That's one of the greatest feelings I've ever had as a person.
Well, and it's not to like lift you up and be like, oh, look how great you are. You send all your non-believing friends Bible. Like, no, it's like you're just you care about these people.
Yes.
And like for Christians to look out, obviously we are eternity minded. Mm-hmm. I think that makes sense. Like, we don't want to see our friends perish.
No.
I don't want to see my friends not in heaven with me.
Yes.
Like, whether, we don't really know what that's going to look like, if we even recognize them, but I want them there.
Well, and there's a contentment in that. So like I wrestled and I struggled with those things. So like when I found a peace of mind about it, why wouldn't I share that with someone? Like you too can have this contentment in Christ.
Yeah.
So let's jump into this verse real quick, because I have this is kind of a verse about being supportive, like supporting your friends. I have 2 Kings 2:2.
Okay.
And it says, "And Elijah said to Elisha, 'Please stay here, for the Lord has sent me as far as Bethel.' But Elisha said, 'As the Lord lives, and as you yourself live, I will not leave you.' So they went down to Bethel together." So it was like, even that friend cared for, so Elijah cared enough for Elisha. It's kind of confusing.
Yeah.
Elijah cared enough for Elisha to say, "This is going to be a long trip. I'm going here. It's going to be awful. You should just stay here so you don't have to go through it."
Yeah.
And then the other friend looks at him. Elisha looks at Elijah and says, "Yeah, you're joking if you think I'm not coming with you."
Yeah.
So I love that example, because I mean, it's just like, it's almost like I've done that with friends before. Like, you're stupid if you think I'm not coming with you.
Yeah.
Like, it's going to be a challenge, so I'm going to be there to help you through that challenge.
Yeah. Or it's like doing simple things for people that you're not like usually hanging out with. Like I think of like helping somebody, like if you're staying with a friend or staying with some family that you're usually not, like just helping them out, doing what you can to help. Or like I just helped my buddy tile his kitchen. We're going to trade out some labor. And because I got a lot of stuff in my house to do too. And there were parts where he's like, "Oh man, you don't really have to do it." And it's like, "No, man, like this is going to suck for you to do it by yourself. Like I want to help you with this." So
yes, I actually, Ecclesiastes, I have a verse about that, like giving help. Ecclesiastes 4:9-10. "Two are better than one, because they have a good reward for their toil. For if they fall, one will lift up his fellow. But woe to him who is always alone. When he falls, he has not another to lift him up."
that's rough.
So like, I mean, it's telling you right there, like, find a friend.
Yeah.
Have a friend there. Volunteer to help other friends.
Yeah.
You know what it's been like to go through things alone. So make sure that when you see your friend struggling, to go help him.
Yeah.
Like, I could just keep bouncing around at this point, like in the Bible, because like, I mean, I have a verse about withholding friendship. Like,
yeah, and while you're turning there, like the whole thing about being there for each other, you might be that person right now listening who feels like you don't have that person. I'll tell you right now, I know it's kind of an odd relationship to start because we're speaking through technology, but write us. Talk to us.
yes.
Because if you're struggling with that, we want to be here for you. Mm-hmm. We want to be able to help lift you up and help you with whatever you're going through in any way we can. And because like, thank goodness for both of us, we're both married, happily married. Like I have the benefit of being able, like when I fall, my wife is there.
Yes.
And it goes obviously farther outside of that. But we understand that there's people there, or you might know that one person in your life. Like God's always tugging on those strings of like, "Hey man, take a look over here and see what you could be doing." You have those people in your life that maybe you've
refused to acknowledge it.
Refused to acknowledge, or even maybe let friendships pass. And it's like they're struggling. If they fall, you know how hard it's going to be for them to stand back up. Be that person for them.
Yes.
Not as like oh, look how awesome I am. I'm a great friend. No, like do it because that's what Christ would have us do. Christ would be there, trudging through the mud with them.
Yes.
To get them lifted back up.
What you were saying about, like, you have your wife, and I have mine, obviously. But like, I can't explain how important it is to have friends outside of your marriage relationship.
Well, definitely, yeah.
Like the women need to go out with their women friends and talk about.
Are you sexist?
Who knows what?
Are you sexist?
No. And men need to go out with other men to talk about those things. Like men need to lift each other up, and women need to lift each other up. And
well, because we each know the struggles that we're going through to an extent.
Yes, exactly.
Women and men, although we share a lot of the same burdens, we go through different things and we handle things differently. My wife is not always going to completely understand how I deal with a certain thing, but you will, because
and that's healthy. It's healthy. Like if you spend every single waking moment with your spouse, I know my wife would be like, okay, I need you to go outside for an hour. Like, just get out of here. Like, because it's important for men to lift each other up and women to lift each other up. Like, that's really important. You said something else in that last thing you said, and I forgot what it was. But let's talk about, like, so I have a verse about withholding friendship from your friends.
Interesting point.
In Job, chapter 6, verse 14, it says,
rough book, especially when it comes to friendship.
Yes. But I mean, there's so many examples. Like there's like in Job, it even names his 4 friends, and they're like, oh man, holy crap, look how much Job is struggling. And then they all get in contact with each other, and they're like, let's go over there and support Job. And they all do. That's what they do. They all go support Job. But another verse that I think I could find that one in here, but this one says, chapter 6, verse 14 says, he who withholds kindness from a friend forsakes the fear of the Almighty. Like, whoa.
Well, and I think a lot that came from, that portion of that came from God, I believe. I might be wrong when I say this, because eventually his friends kind of turn on him.
Yes, they do.
Because
eventually, the trials of Job.
Yeah.
Eventually, Job pretty much goes through everything under the sun and still remains faithful.
Yeah.
But
well, and that's an interesting topic because you bring that up. So something I talked to you about this. Other close friends of mine that I've recently, I'm kind of like systematically going through, because I went through like a period of my life over the last, really since college. I had a really hard falling out with the majority of my friends in college when I stopped doing all the stuff that I was doing, and I really focused on Christ. That's when I met my wife, so I was very focused on a relationship because we kind of didn't have anybody but each other. And so I
remember this time because there was a while where I was almost upset with you because like I couldn't get you to come outside of your relationship with your girlfriend or your wife. We had a big
blow up too,
where I was like, dude, just give us some time. Yeah. Like I would invite you to something and you'd be like, no, my wife and I are doing our Friday night date night that we do. And I'd be like, dude, come on. Like, just. Well, and I also admire you for that because I learned a lot from it.
Well, and I don't regret.
But I also felt like, I don't know what that would be like to go through because I feel like you were a little bit alone in that, and I'll let you speak to that. I'm going to quit talking.
Well, in that time, I put my focus on like my faith and my family. And like and I will admit, I did let a lot of friendships falter. There was a period of time where me and you we had a big blow up fight kind of around that same time. And we went a long time. We never got to a point of being like, we had a huge falling out. I'm just not friends with him anymore. It never came down to that, but I did have that with some friends. And then there was just some friends that were kind of on the fringe that I didn't address and didn't keep in touch with probably the way that I should have. And now I realize as I look back on that, God's kind of put that on my heart this last year. So I've kind of been systematically going through a lot of people and being like, hey man, I'm sorry. I was a really bad friend. Like I told you this, like, because with this podcast and everything starting up, me and you started calling each other multiple times a day. And like, I missed that. Like there was kind of a longing for that. And then I realized how many of my other friends, I was kind of doing the same thing too. So once again, if you're out there and we were friends and I haven't got to you yet, I'm working on it. It's a hard thing for me to admit. Like, we don't want to admit our faults, but that's crucial. And this is a crucial step for me because I don't want to lose those friendships over stupid, silly stuff that happened years ago when we were immature, whatever. So, it's just, I don't know. It's just an interesting, for me, like this interesting personal awareness, I guess, of where I realized that I was going down a bad path, and so I'm on the process right now of trying to rectify that if I can.
Yes. Like you said, we had that big blow up.
Yeah.
I kind of want to talk about that, not like the details of that, but like giving each other advice and critique of one another. I mean, because that's in the Bible too. I mean, it's all in there.
Yes.
But there are specific verses that, like, again, we're in Proverbs because Proverbs is so chock full of stuff that is perfect for this. Proverbs 27.
I call it God's fortune cookies.
Proverbs 27:9 says, oil and perfume make the heart glad, and the sweetness of a friend comes with his earnest counsel. So, like, you can ask your friends for those advice, but also don't be afraid to give that advice when they don't ask for it. Sometimes they're looking for it, and they may not even want to hear it at the time. But in my personal experience with friends inside the church and outside the church, I've had those people come back after a matter of days or whatever it is and be like, I needed to hear that. I didn't want to hear it, but I needed to hear it, and I can't thank you enough for hearing it or telling me that. And so, but also that's in the Bible too. We're not going to dive into that right now, but be delicate about it. There's a way to go about it. Like when we talked about how we blew up, I can think of verses in Proverbs that are like a man who brings the fight first or whatever it is, and then it says, so just end it right there before the fight breaks out.
Yeah.
And
it even tells you, like, if what you're gonna, we talked about it earlier. I don't remember the specific verse, but it talks about like those people that are like the people that unleash their anger on you, and that's all they're going to do. It says, don't be a part of their lives.
Well, and like, yeah, right. I have it right here. Proverbs 27:5-6. Better is open rebuke to a friend than hidden love. So instead of just keeping that love from them, you openly rebuke them and let them know that you love them. And then the following verse is, faithful are the wounds of a friend, but profuse are the kisses of an enemy. Yeah. So you may feel hurt by that rebuke from your friend or that critique or whatever it is that they're calling you out for. The call out, essentially, is what our generation, or what we would call it nowadays. Like, I'm calling you out, but I'm not calling you out because...
to make you feel like a piece of crap.
Yes, I'm calling you out because I want you to be better. I can see that you can be better.
Yeah.
And I also want you to feel better because I can feel and see how crappy you're feeling. So,
well, and it has to be done. We've talked a lot about.
It has to come from an unselfish place.
Yes.
It can't be your thing. Like, oh, I want you to be better for me because I want you to be a better friend to me. No, I just want you to be better for your sake.
Yeah.
And this has nothing to do with me. I just want to be here to help you if you need it.
Yeah. And it goes deeper into like the talk of rebuke of sin and everything like that. You have to be careful how you approach it. Mm-hmm. You need to, and anytime you can back anything up in Scripture, especially with a fellow believer, it's hard to just sling Scripture at non-believers. You're not going to get a lot of reception from that. But to believing friends, like, you need to be able to open up and say, hey man, I don't know if that's the right thing.
Yes.
But explain it, do it out of love, do it out of care. And sometimes it's never going to work out perfectly every time. You're going to get friendships, but
that makes it stronger. That
should.
Yes. That adversity will make it. I have that here. Just give me a second.
Or we get too bent out of shape. Mm-hmm. Well, my feelings are, if your friendship is going to end over words, if it's going to end over words and end over hurt feelings, that's stupid.
Yes.
Like, get over yourself. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry.
For the sake of both of you.
Like, just suck it up because
I have that
the truth hurts, and we are so unable especially Christians, but just people like I'm sorry, I'm going to say it. I'm going to sound like an old person when I say that. The generations keep getting softer and softer and softer. And we are so about safe spaces and not offending somebody else and canceling people because it's too offensive to be around. You know, if I can't agree with everything you say, then I'm just going to remove myself from your presence and not hear any of your stuff.
From my presence.
No, that's stupid. That's dumb. I'm sorry.
Well, how do you expect to grow? How do you expect to adapt and overcome if you're just going to shy away from everything because it might offend you?
And then all you're going to do is surround yourself with yes men and people pleasers, and that's not friendship. It's that verse that you just said. Quiet love is hidden love is nothing.
Proverbs 17:17. A friend loves at all times. All times. A friend loves at all times, and a brother is born for adversity. So a brother is born for adversity. To me, that's saying it's going to be hard.
Yeah.
It's going to be tough. And you're going to bump heads.
Yes.
But once you get over that hump, that friendship, that brotherhood is going to be that much stronger. So then, I mean, can you imagine the mountains you're going to be able to climb after you get over this little molehill that you just created because you got angry at each other?
Yeah.
Like, that's incredible to me. And I have friends like that. I mean, you're one of them. Like, our friendships are stronger because of the fights we've had. And maybe we didn't handle them the best, but we've also been able to come back from them and be like, yo, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And, or like you said, like, I'm sorry you were right, or I'm sorry I was wrong, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and
and then you find joy, you find happiness.
Yeah.
In that afterwards.
There's nothing better than reconciling with people.
I mean, like, it's just screaming at me. Like, a joyful heart is good medicine, but a crushed spirit dries up the bones. So, like, if you're just gonna walk away beaten, that's how you're gonna feel, and that's how you're gonna approach every other situation too. Instead of being like, well, if I can look at this from this person's perspective and see their point of view, maybe I can better find out how to understand what they're going through and be a better friend.
All you can do is present facts, present example, present intent, and let people know. I kind of want to shift this just a little bit. Because, so going back to that original verse, Jesus talks about no greater love than the love of a friend who would lay down his life for another friend. Mm-hmm. So I've got friends I would, without a doubt, I'd take a bullet for. Like, there are situations, and I know people, and then I started thinking about this a little deeper because I was like, that sacrificial love's crazy because not only is Jesus speaking to his disciples here, but because the Bible's awesome, the way God worked through how he speaks, how his Holy Spirit works through his living word, is that Jesus, yes, he was talking to his 12 disciples here, but he's speaking to each and every single person on the earth through this statement. So when you read that statement, when you read John, when you read those words and where he's talking to his disciples, he's talking about the friendship that he has with his disciples. You have to look at that in kind of a personal, point that back on yourself. Jesus is saying that to you too. So regardless of your viewpoint of Jesus or your relationship with Jesus or your belief in Jesus, regardless of all that, Jesus still loves you like a friend and sacrificed his life
and forgave you.
For you.
Colossians 3:12-13. Put on then as God's chosen ones, holy and beloved, compassionate hearts, kindness, humility, meekness, and patience, bearing with one another, and if one has a complaint against another, forgiving each other, as the Lord has forgiven you, so you must also forgive.
Yeah.
Move on.
Move on.
Move on.
Forgive and forget.
Yes.
I shouldn't say forgive and forget. We talked about that a couple episodes ago. I'm not crazy about that statement. Forgive and move past, like forgive and don't hold the grudge.
Yes.
So I think you'd be surprised if you're in a situation with a bunch of strangers or even people that you might not be super fond of. We have friends, we have family that, you've always got those one friends or family that you're like, ooh, gonna go hang out with them. But like,
you probably shouldn't feel that way.
I think if it really came down to it, though, I think that you would be surprised. And when I say you, I'm not talking to you specifically. I'm talking to you, every single one of you listening to this right now. I think you would be surprised at how willing you might be to lay your life down for someone that you might not consider your friend.
Yeah, you might not even know. And sometimes that'll connect to friendship. That'll connect to, well, I would die for that person even though I'm not friends with them, but because I know my friend is so tightly connected to them that they'd be lost without them.
Yeah.
You'd find yourself wanting to, like, it's the word vicariously, saving this person by sacrificing yourself for a completely different person.
Yeah. Well, it's so this might be kind of a weird statement to make, kind of a weird comparison.
Okay.
So, of all people, I got like a really interesting thing. Me and you talk a lot on image bearers and this idea of loving people, not just because we're called to love them, but because every single person's made in the image of Christ. That'll be one we dive deeply into probably soon. A random person, Joe Rogan, I've talked about him in the past. Most people know him, has a vastly, like, super popular, I think it's like the most popular podcast in the world. And granted, forewarning, if you go listen to him, if you haven't listened to him yet, this is not a Christian podcast. It's not, there's going to be a lot of stuff you don't like on there if you're a Christian. But it's entertaining for me. He made a really interesting statement of how he views people now. He changed how he viewed people. And they're talking about a lot of the race things that are going on, a lot of the hate and everything like that. And he used the comparison that he started looking at people as if they were little babies. And this idea, sorry, right as you're taking a drink of coffee. But he's like, the idea of like, everybody loves everyone can agree that if you have a little baby in front of you, like, that is a precious little life. That's a something that needs nurturing and care and cannot fend for itself.
Yes.
So even though you might not like babies or like kids, whatever, that's your own thing. But your focus is that thing has value and it needs protection. It needs cared for. He said, every single person you run into on the street at one point in time was one of those babies. And that's how he starts viewing human life now, which is interesting. It's an interesting secular viewpoint. And I've kind of started adopting this because going back to the sacrificial love of Christ, like, we're simply called to love God and love people. So even though we have our own little idea of what friendship is, like, you think of those people you're close to, and then there's a lot of people that you would consider not friends, or just random people that are strangers. In Christ's eyes, every single one of those people ought to be your friend. There's no reason why they shouldn't be your friend. So they deserve your love. They deserve your respect in the same way that Christ would give that love and respect to them.
Well, and even if you feel like you're downtrodden, and things are going bad, say, I'm thinking of, I actually just saw this on Facebook. I think it was your sister-in-law that posted it. You can still pour from an empty cup. So even if you feel like your cup is empty and you're just low, you can always come alongside somebody else and say something that will make them feel better, or make them better in general. And that's not to say that you're not going to have friends that will alienate themselves from you. Yeah. You may have friends that will just like, I mean, they might not forgive you, even though you've forgiven them, and that's okay.
Hey, before you continue real quick, let's take one last break real quick.
Okay.
What is up, Dry Bones Nation? That's right. We've officially named you guys. We cannot express how much we are just so incredibly thankful that you guys are joining in and listening to us. We want to just take a moment to share some information with you guys, but more importantly, We want to share ways that we want to support you, and just a way to say thank you for your support in us. Firstly, if you just need prayer for your life, we want to be there for you. We understand that sometimes prayer is the simplest way that we can show support to somebody. So if you need prayer in your life today, please send any of your prayer requests to prayers@drybonespodcast.com. Also, if you do not own a Bible, we want to help you out. This is something near and dear to our hearts. So if you are needing a Bible of your very own, please reach out and contact us. We will get the information we need to get you your very own Bible. The easiest way to contact us is through our emails at ethan@drybonespodcast.com and isaac@drybonespodcast.com. If you're trying to reach us on social media, there's a good chance we're not going to talk on there. That's not the avenue that we want to have conversations. It does not usually promote healthy conversations. So please email us if you're trying to get in touch with us. And lastly, guys, just listening is enough support for us. We thank you so much for that. But if you want to take just a very simple extra step, please follow all of our social medias, which are in the links. Like us, follow us, find us on YouTube and subscribe. This is how we get the word out to people. This is not about us trying to become famous. That's not what we're about. I hope that you would have picked that up by now. We want to share Jesus and to spread this message to anybody and everybody within the church and especially outside of the church. So please like us, follow us, and subscribe on all of our social medias. We thank you guys. We love you so much.
You're gonna have friends that will separate themselves, and I'm not saying that at certain times in your life it might be healthy for you to separate yourself from somebody, but you cannot completely close that door.
Yeah,
I don't think
you can't sever the tie.
Exactly. You can still leave that door open for them to come back and say, "I'm sorry," or you need to be sure that you've said your piece.
Yeah,
and put the ball in their court.
Yeah,
because now it's up to them. I also think of people who have like, I know people that have like all these tiny little micro friendships, and they don't have any like true solid friends that they can depend on.
Yeah.
You know, like, hold on, I have a verse for that.
You're just chock full of them today, man.
I know. Proverbs, again, 18:24. And I have two different versions because the translations are kind of different for this. A man of many companions can come to ruin, but there is a friend who sticks closer than a brother. So then you can have friends that are so close to you, you would call them your brother, related to you, like blood.
Yeah.
And then you can have many, many, many friends, and those friendships don't amount to one iota of the friendship you have with that person that is your brother. And the other translation of that is the one I just read was the ESV, and this one I think is the New King James, and it says, "One who has unreliable friends soon comes to ruin, but there is a friend who sticks closer than a brother." So unreliable friends.
Yeah.
So if those friends are, I would almost say that's a superficial friendship.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, I mean, that's that almost acquaintance friendship. Like, yeah, I'm friends with that person, but would you die for that person?
Go back to the verse. Go back to the verse in John.
Yeah.
Here, you kind of continue. I'll get there real quick.
No, you're good. You're good. I have like one more point that I want to hit, maybe two. We're kind of running out of time, but we're good.
Yeah, we're good. I mean, if you're listening, we're sorry. We're trying to keep these a little bit shorter, but this is just a good topic, and we're not going to stop a good topic just
bear with us
because of time.
Yep.
You might just have to break up the listening. Well, I just want to just on that thought, like flaky friends or whatever. What was the reference that it? Not flaky friends, but that's my paraphrasing.
Superficial friends.
Yeah, the superficial, like go
unreliable
back to
friends.
Unreliable. Go back to that first thing. This for John 15. I no longer call you servants because a servant does not know his master's business. Instead, I've called you friends. For everything that I've learned from my Father, I have made known to you. The transition of that, I guess, us living that out, you know those friendships that you withhold information and that they're probably withholding those unreliable friends. You're not at the friendship level at that point. And so do what you have to do, show that love, because once you're able to reach that point of saying, hey, I want to let you know everything that's going on. I want to let you in so that you can let me in. That's where that friendship strengthens. And if if you can't reach a point of that with that person, don't cut the ties. Don't alienate them for the rest of your life. But you might have to stop hanging out with people like that.
Yes.
And it's going to be tough.
Put
it's going
the
to be
ball
hard.
in their court, like
Put the
I
ball in
said.
their court.
But don't. This is the hard part. I'm guilty of this, and I've seen this verse that I'm getting ready to read come to happen, and I'm sad about that. Don't talk trash on them. Like, move on from it.
Yeah.
Like, don't be like, yeah, I'm going to have to separate myself from such and such because he did this to me and he was stupid for doing that, blah, 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 blah. Like, don't do that.
Yeah.
Proverbs 16:28 says, a dishonest man spreads strife and a whisperer separates close friends. Don't gossip.
Yeah.
Don't go gossiping about it. That's between you and that person. That is not between you and this person over here. You can go tell this person. And then eventually it gets back around.
Yeah.
And then that friendship is so completely broken, you may never get it back.
I think the same thing is like it causes dissension. And I think I want to say it's Paul in the New Testament talks about that in the church. Like that can kill a church. It can kill friendships. And then ultimately the worst part of it is like, oh yeah, boohoo you lose those friendships. The worst part is you're ruining your witness in those situations.
Yes.
You're losing your ability to effectively share Christ. Now, God can still use any situation regardless, but your effectiveness in you've lost your credibility with certain people.
Well, and
how many people do you have in your life? No, I'm not going to say it. Never mind. I'm going to leave that out.
Moving on.
It might get too close to close to home.
Just because they did something wrong to you, do not return that evil with another evil. Just give them good. You know, kill. I always say, kill them with kindness. Kill them with kindness.
Which is really hard to do.
Yes, because if they're going to, I mean, another Proverbs, anyone who returns evil for good, evil will not depart from his house. So they're just going to get caught up in that bad pattern.
Yeah.
And you know in your heart and in your mind that you've done the right thing, and ultimately that door is still open. They might, with you leaving that door open, you might be their last resort even 15 years from now.
Yeah.
I mean, who knows how long it could be. Like there's so much good stuff in Proverbs. I can't stop saying that. But like whoever covers an offense, like gets over it. This is chapter 17, verse 9. Whoever covers an offense seeks love, but he who repeats the matter separates close friends. A rebuke goes deeper into a man of understanding than 100 punches 100 blows into a fool. So you show love to that person. A rebuke in love goes deeper into that man than would 50 punches.
Yeah.
Like, so I back to that last one. I said, do not return evil with evil. Return evil with good. And then if evil's returned back to you, that ball's still in their court. And they're going to be like, I mean, I've done it in my own life. Like years down the road, you're like, man, I was so mean or rude to that person and they just treated me with kindness. And then you almost want to go back to them and be like, hey, why did you treat me with such kindness? And they're like, oh, well, here's why.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, we know a lot of gracious people.
Yeah, we do.
Gracious, forgiving people.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Well, and it's a struggle. We're trying, I mean, you deal with it every day.
Yes.
You deal with it with your friends. You deal with it with your family. Family's the hardest because you can't, you're stuck with them. I mean, for the most part, you're stuck with the family.
You're not getting rid of them.
You can't change that. So you just got to do what you got to do, and you have to be able to come to an agreement. And if one side of it is just stuck in the mud, like you got to smile, nod your head. Sometimes you just got to take the abuse. Don't let them continue to abuse you, but sometimes you just got to stick in it.
I got one more thing we can kind of end with, and then you can do the on the throne moment.
Yeah,
you cool with
go
that?
for it.
Last but certainly not least, pray for those people.
Yeah.
Like, I have Job 42:10 here. And the Lord restored the fortunes of Job, which, if you don't know the story of Job, he went through literally every hardship you could go through on earth.
Yeah.
And he prayed for his friends even when they betrayed him or stole from him or whatever they did to him. He still prayed for those people. And then the Lord restored the fortunes of Job when he had prayed for his friends. And the Lord gave Job twice as much as he had before. So that'll be returned to you tenfold.
In one way or another.
Not necessarily earthly, even, but like store up your treasures in heaven.
Yeah.
Like God is going to bless you for that, for taking time out of your day to pray for that person, even though they wronged you. And that's hard. That's hard to do.
Yeah, it is.
God has a way of like tearing open your heart when you're praying for someone that you can't stand.
Yeah.
Like I think of that all the time when I'm like, I'm going to have to pray for this person.
Lord, please smite them today. Oh, no. Yeah. I mean, God, I love them.
Give them peace. It's hard. Like, it really is to just be like, Lord, like, I don't even want to say it, but just take care of this person. Just pray for them. And it's tough.
It's friendships. They are the greatest and hardest thing. Like that is the hard part about friendship, is that you have to have hard parts of the friendship. If that makes sense. It kind of sounds redundant.
Yeah, but I get what you mean.
But like, it's a hard... what I found out in life, and this is kind of like, I talk about this with my wife a lot. It's like kind of the whole you reap what you sow type of thing. The effort and the work that you put into something in the beginning usually reaps you the most benefit in the end.
Yes.
So the things that are hard, get the hard parts done. Mm-hmm. And then it makes things so much easier, with whether it's your relationships, like get through the hard crap. Don't give up. Don't back out. Don't put off the hard stuff. In any situation that you've been in, go back and look at what you've done. If you could put the effort in, or if you did put the effort in, the hard effort in the beginning, you usually see the benefits sooner, and it's more rewarding. Mm-hmm. And
you almost feel better instantly. It's almost almost stupid how easy it is to pray for somebody that you disagree with or are mad at or angry at or hold a grudge against. And then you get done with the prayer and you're like, oh,
yeah,
like, wow, I do feel better.
Or, at the end you're like, I don't feel so good about that because I probably should have prayed for them or thought about them or done something for them in a better way.
And then it rides on you.
And then it rides on you.
Yeah.
So, so let's move into the On the Throne. And just as a reminder, if you're kind of new to listening, the On the Throne moment for us, this is one of our favorite quotes ever from our pastor growing up. And it wasn't his quote, but he just used it all the time, and it's just ingrained in our memory, is that no matter what happens today, the sun will rise tomorrow, and Jesus will still be sitting on the throne.
Yes.
So God is always in control. Mm-hmm. Kind of a weird tie into this. I wanted to talk more about it kind of in the meat and in the meat of this podcast, but it's a good thing to finish on, I think, too. As we talk about friendships, I want to look into probably the most popular, definitely the most covered friendship, I would say, in the Bible, and that's of David and Jonathan. Mm-hmm. And so just and we're talking about Old Testament King David.
Defeated
Goliath, yeah. So at the time that David and Jonathan meet each other, Saul has been elected by the people to be king of Israel. They wanted a king, even though that was not God's original intention. They wanted to be like everybody else, so they wanted a king, so they elected Saul. And Saul, though anointed by God in the beginning, just fought God along the whole way. And in the midst of this, David becomes this rising star, because David was God's chosen to be king.
Man after God's own heart.
Yeah. And through David's rise to fame and rise to glory within Saul's armies, he befriends Saul's son, his oldest son, Jonathan, who, interestingly enough, is the prince. He was the heir to the throne. When Saul was done, Jonathan should have taken his place as king, as typical lineage would go. And if you go through and read the dynamic of the relationship, and it gets a lot of controversy. There's a lot of stupid stuff out there about it being like a weird example of like a homosexual relationship. Let me tell you right now, is not true. I have this article here, and I could really dive deeply into this, but it's a website called God Buddies, and it kind of focuses on relationships. So check it out. Go to God Buddy. I believe. Let me look here. I believe it's just god-buddies.com. And you can look up the story of David and Jonathan in this, and it breaks it down in a lot more depth. But Jonathan had every reason to hate David. He had every reason to hate him. Saul was constantly trying to kill. Saul was trying to constantly kill David.
It would have been, yeah. I mean, he had every example of how to hate him, so of course it would be easy to hate him. Yeah.
But in the very beginning, like something happens with them, and they create this friendship. And it talks about immediately it talks about this soul connection. Jonathan immediately has an admiration of David, this new young leader. Scripture tells us that the two formed a friendship that connected them at a soul level. So as soon as he had finished speaking to Saul, the soul of Jonathan was knit to the soul of David, and Jonathan loved him as his own soul. Jonathan then ended up making a covenant with David, giving him rich garments, a sword, and his bow. And as David returned from subsequent battles and the high praises, King Saul became violently jealous. And it goes on and on and on about this back and forth story between Saul bringing David in and then trying to kill him, and David fleeing, and much of David's young life he spent fleeing from Saul. This whole time, Jonathan is right there commanding large portions of Saul's army. Yet he still retains this relationship with David, and
he keeps blessing him.
He keeps helping him, and they keep coming back together. And unfortunately, and he even knows, Jonathan knows that David is eventually going to take really what's his birthright, and what his inheritance should be, his throne, his kingdom.
Every time he shows him love, he's essentially self-sacrificing.
Yeah.
Like he's giving up what he has right to show love to another person.
Yeah. And one of the really cool things, I'm not going to dive, I highly encourage you, go check it out at godbuddies.com. Look this up, because it really dives in deep to like how our modern American view of relationships with men has faltered compared to what they were, even just go back 100 years.
Yep.
We've been taught and raised that we can't show any type of affection, especially towards another man, because it's this weird, like, homosexual, homophobic thing that we go through. And that's not the case. Like, you can show affection to your buddy. You can love, like the Bible talks about, greet your fellow man with a godly kiss.
Yeah.
Now, we don't walk around kissing each other but I tell you, the first thing me and you do when we see each other is give each other a big old bear hug.
Yeah.
That's what this relationship was. And it's this soul knitting. It's like, those really close friends you have, there's no pulling that apart. So I encourage you, check out this article, check out the story. I believe it's in 1 Samuel, and just kind of go through that, because those people in your life. Mm-hmm. If you're listening right now, I can guarantee you have a friendship, close or distant, whether it's family or just a friend, whatever it might be. You have that person right now that you're thinking of, that you're like, ugh, man, I really need to talk to them, or I really need to share this with them, or I really need to let this off my chest. I need to forgive them. Maybe it's forgiveness. Maybe someone's involved in something.
Maybe you just need to tell them you love them.
Maybe you just need to tell them you love them. Tomorrow, the sun is going to come up. Jesus Christ is still going to be on the throne, and you're sitting here still holding on to whatever that might be. You got to let it go.
Yep.
You got to let it go. Reach out to those people. Reach out to the people currently in your life. Reach out to those who could be new friendships. Share the love of Christ. Bring someone in from this position of I do this for you, you do this for me type of thing. Reach that transition like Jesus did with his disciples. And become that group that can sit there and share off each other and know each other's plans, know each other's thoughts and feelings, help each other along, because it's only going to benefit everybody involved.
Well, and if you're not ready to talk to him, if you're not ready to even forgive him, if you're not ready to do that, which I always encourage you to hurry up and get there, but everybody does things in their own time.
Yeah.
If you're not ready for those things, at least pray for him. make a list. That's one thing that really helps me. Like, I make a list and I add people to it like monthly. Like, and then I have a list of people that I want to pray for because I really care for those people. Then I have this list of people that I have a hard time praying for, but I still need to pray for them.
Yeah.
If you're caught up on something with somebody, pray for that event or whatever you're caught up on.
And I'm sorry.
I like prayer is incredible. The power of prayer is incredible.
It is. And I'm sorry. I say this because I love you. Prayer is great. Prayer is a great thing to do. If you're struggling with that idea of how to talk to someone, suck it up and go do it.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Suck it up and go do it. It's a hard thing to do. It sucks.
Well, and
but the benefit.
The words will come.
They will.
The hard part is showing up. The words will come.
Just the intent of trying to accomplish it.
Yes.
Is enough to usually solve the issue at hand.
Yep.
Most people don't hold on to the anger like you think they might be. Yep. So, this is good, man.
Yeah, this was a good one.
I love this topic. When you first brought it up, I was like, man, that's going to be really hard. And then I literally, after 20 minutes of diving into some research, I was like, I've got everything I need. Like,
I don't know
and
why
now we're running over time.
I was just on the tractor and I was like, I want to talk about friends.
Yeah.
I just want to talk I love all my friends. I love them all.
I love you, man.
I tell them. Tell your friends you love them.
We love you listening very much.
You want to close?
Yeah, I'll close this in prayer,
okay.
And then we'll head out of here. So, dear Heavenly Father, God, we thank you so much for just the love that you showed us. We would not even know where to begin with how to treat each other if you did not give us that example first. And God, there is no better example for loving others than what you've done for us with your Son, Jesus Christ. God, I know that there's people right now listening to this who are struggling right now with the relationship, whether it's a close friend, whether it's a family member. God, I pray that you can bridge that gap. I pray that you give them the motivation to speak to each other. I pray that you can just give them the words to say to each other, or just break down those walls that are holding them back from doing that. Because God, the relief that comes from those moments far, far outweighs just this own pride, this idea of pride of holding on to whatever it might be. So God, I pray right now that you can just boldly speak to anyone struggling with that right now. God, I just pray that we can do this as a nation. I pray that you can reveal this type of love and friendship to those inside the church and outside the church. But God, let this group of believers, let these people start to make the steps to just make a major impact on those around them, just simply by being a good person, a good friend, showing your love to them. So God, we thank you so much. I thank you so much for this opportunity. I thank you for Isaac and everything that he does and brings to this, because this isn't even a work for us. This is so much fun to be able to get together and to talk about you and share your love and your story to people out there. And I just thank you for his friendship and his love that he constantly shows. And God, I just pray that you continue to bless him through that. So we love you so much, God. We thank you as always. We lift all this up in your most heavenly name. Amen.
Amen.
We love you guys. Thank you for listening. Sorry that we went a little longer this time.
Sorry, not sorry.
Yeah, sorry, not sorry. We love you. See you guys real soon.